Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to be able to share this presentation with you. My name is Anna Valdez. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Emergency Nursing, and we're going to be talking to you about tech-savvy tools that you can use to help you with writing and to streamline what you're writing. Please feel free to use the chat to ask questions or to provide comments. Also, please bear with me. I'm having unexpected construction work, so there is a little bit of background noise, but the good news is that my colleague, Dr. Fontenot, will be doing most of the talking today, and I'll try to answer questions in the chat and save what I can't for him when he's done. So, also, this presentation, if you have colleagues who wanted to be able to see it, will be posted on our Gen Online website. It will also be in a condensed version offered at EN25 for people who will be coming and maybe want to chat in person. Also wanted to share for those of you who are interested, at EN25, we'll have a publishing lounge. So if you are interested in authoring and want to bring your ideas, please come and see us. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Fontenot, who is one of our associate editors here dealing with stats and methods, and is also editor-in-chief for teaching and learning in nursing. And so I'll just turn it on over to you, Justin.
Perfect. Thank you so much. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for joining the webinar today and express my great honor and pleasure at being here and having this opportunity to talk with you all. Please feel free, as Dr. Valdez mentioned, post your questions in the chat. This is sort of a conversational presentation. I will say that what I hope that you all gain out of this, hi from Temple, Texas, by the way. By the way, I am based here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm also an associate professor here at the School of Medicine at Tulane University. What I hope you get out of this, so what this presentation is kind of geared for, are those who are interested in being authors, those who have not authored before, or those who maybe they're in the process of authoring a paper, and maybe it's sitting on their desktop and they don't know how to move it forward. And hopefully this presentation can give you some accessible tools and some guidance on how to make the best use of the things that are out there that can really help promote publishing and writing. So on the next slide, we just have a few brief presentation objectives here. First of all, a lot of people ask questions about what part of the research and writing and publishing process is it most appropriate for me to use AI-powered or technology tools that are so prevalent in today's society. So we'll talk a little bit through that as well. Then we'll review some tools. I will say before moving through the rest of the presentation that I am impartial here. I have no financial interest in any of these tools. I am not paid by any of these companies that sponsor these AI-powered tools. I am just sharing some of the best practices that I've developed. Part of my story is that I am working on my second doctorate now. I currently have a Doctor of Nursing practice degree, and I am in the midst of my dissertation at Texas Women's University. I'm getting my PhD. I plan to defend in a couple of months, so that's wonderful. But the journey's been long. And I just, as AI tools and AI chatbots became more prolific in our society in like 2022, I started figuring out maybe there's a way I can leverage this to be a better student, to be a better scientist, right? So I am sharing in this presentation my personal experiences with using and engaging in these tools, and also hopefully providing you with some guidance that keeps things ethical, because we all know that a lot of times when we're talking about AI and when we're talking about publishing, we have to talk about the ethics that surround those things. We know that people are doing some inappropriate things with AI, and it's causing our scholarship, not just in nursing, but just in science in general, to be compromised. So rest assured that I've taken those things into consideration in this presentation, so that not only are you getting my personal experiences with navigating these tools, but also you're understanding the limitations of what these tools can and cannot do, and what is or isn't appropriate use from a publishing perspective. We'll review those tools to hopefully help you to get a move on that paper that you're working on, or even if it's just that idea in your head that's keeping you up at night, that's waking you up in the morning and saying, I really need, this is good stuff. I need to get this down. I need to get it published. Hopefully this will help you jumpstart that brainstorming. Hopefully this will promote the ability to move to that formal next step. Publishing and writing is hard. Don't let anyone fool you about that. It's hard on many fronts. It's hard because we have to contend with ethical challenges. It's hard because we have to be open and accepting to our papers being rejected, or getting feedback that sometimes can be hard to digest. But there's tools to help us as we continue in this modern AI age. Again, we will talk about some of those ethical considerations so that you have all the information in a transparent and hopefully accessible way to help promote your scholarship. And then both Dr. Valdez and I will have a conversation just to kind of discuss some of the recommended disclosures for when you do engage in some of these tools. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about the elements of writing that we engage with as researchers on a regular basis, and what kind of tools might be beneficial in each of these stages. So if you are working on research, or you are planning to work on research, you're getting ready to write your protocol, we know that that first step is kind of conceptualizing what questions we have, how do we ask those questions, and how we can put those research questions in our proposal in a way that are answerable and that allows us to build a methodology around those pressing questions that we've been wanting to answer for a while. So when you are refining your research questions, I find AI chatbots a really great resource. Again, this is all about brainstorming. It is not about AI developing the questions for you. My suggestion and my experience with AI so far is I go to AI with questions I've already developed on my Word document, right? So bare bones, getting started with a research project, I need to figure out what questions I want to answer through this research process. And so when I kind of get a real rough draft of those research questions, I want to go ahead and put it into one of the AI tools and just ask the chatbot to help us, or help me, refine those questions. That doesn't mean that you have to change your questions based on what the chatbot is saying, but I do like to use this feature in chatbots, because one of the things I want to do, especially if I already know what data or instruments I would like to collect, I want to make sure that the data I want to collect and the instruments that I'm using to collect these variables are actually appropriate, and I'm able to actually have that question and collect that data that matches and answers that question, so that I can actually produce my statistics, and so that I can actually publish a paper. So I find that any of the Gen AI tools, and by Gen AI, I mean generative AI. We know that AI exists in many, many forms. We have natural language processing, which is basically like asking Alexa for help with a research question. We know that natural language processing is great, but they're not made for this level of work. But our generative AI tools certainly can be. And those include ChatGPT, and this is just a list. There are many others, but Perplexity is one that I've been using for a while. I like it. I'm not a big fan of Copilot, I have to admit, but I am trying to use it a little bit more because my institution provides us with an institutional access to Copilot. And so I probably need to use that a little more and save my money that I spend on ChatGPT. The next thing is sort of kind of broad, conducting literature reviews. Conducting literature reviews, um, I have a couple of thoughts on this from a scientific perspective and also from a journal editing perspective. What I often find is people have great ideas, right? Ideas always, almost always generate from practice. The things we see in practice, the things we do in practice make us think like, how could we do this better? Has anyone ever tried to look into this situation before? How can I do this, right? It really all starts with conducting that literature review. A common mistake that people make, in my opinion, and I see it all the time when people submit manuscripts, is that they don't really know the existing literature. And I don't think it's because they didn't do a literature review. I think it's because they did a spot checked literature review. They went into the databases, they put in some search terms, they kind of just scoured a few articles, they saved a couple of interesting ones, and they put those together to write a literature review of the research paper on the research project. But I want to give you and I know why people do this. Often people do this because we need to save time. We need to answer questions quickly. Sometimes we don't always have the time to do a formal review. Formal reviews take a long time. But the saving grace is that there are tools to help you do that. And I have spoken on like many podcasts and many, webinars, where I'm encouraging people to start really taking a close look at using AI tools for literature review. It cannot conduct, and I want to be very clear, it cannot conduct the literature review for you. It can assist the researcher in closing the time that a researcher would normally spend to do a formal literature review. But it still takes time and it still takes human effort. Nothing that I will say in this webinar is going to free you as a researcher, as actual person from doing anything, because honestly, we know that there's some things that we need to keep an eye on and use real good caution around. And when we're doing those tools, and I'm going to take a deep dive in just a minute here to show you the way I do literature reviews using AI tools. I don't let it do it for me. I guide the entire process and I constantly check for that accuracy. Because there is no one AI tool to help with a literature review, there's a mix of tools. And so I put things together, and I'm going to show you my technique in just a minute here, but I use Gen AI for certain things. I use Elicit and SciSpace for certain things as well. Now, when we're talking about writing the paper, whether it's writing the literature review or whether it's writing the research manuscript, AI can be great. Not that you should let AI write anything at all for you. But what I will say is it can definitely help clarify your language. I don't know about you, but as a writer, I've written many things and I write all the time, but I still sometimes struggle. Like in my mind, I know what I want to say, but it's not coming out, right? And if I do get it out on paper, it's not reflecting what I'm thinking. And I think that disconnect is what a lot of other writers also experience. And that can be so discouraging that sometimes it causes people to table their papers because they can't seem to get their thoughts out in a way that sounds good. Here's the thing. You can tell Gen AI the things you're thinking in any way you want, and then you can prompt it to say, give me a formal paragraph on this and show me an example. And it's going to just give you an example to help kind of, oh, I was missing this. This is how I should frame it. When it comes to maintaining references, I don't use AI at all, and that is kind of it is really an ethical thing. You should never be using AI to cite your paper, to do anything with references, because we know even in the latest models of Gen AI tools, we know that they are inaccurate. We know that they hallucinate, and we know that that can compromise scholarly literature. Um, Editing, grammar flow, clarity. Grammarly is great as well, and also Gen AI. I want to caution with Grammarly, it has now been integrated with AI. So once you're writing and it's correcting as you go, there is also an additional feature where you can improve your text, and it will use AI to give you a suggested rewrite of your paragraph. And I want to be clear that that is AI. So although it seems very helpful, you really do need to check it for accuracy. And when you do use AI in any form, even if it's just in Grammarly, you do need to disclose it. All right, so next, I want to just give you a quick overview and glimpse of the CREATE framework on the next slide. This CREATE framework was not created by me. I have the author, the original author credited here at the bottom, and we have references at the end of the slide deck. You do not have to do this, but I did want to put it out there for people who are unfamiliar with how to use AI tools, like I was when I first started. I think some of it is you have to take the plunge and just kind of practice with it and play with it a little bit. But if you are sort of someone who, like me, prefers a little bit of structure and would like to not waste too much time practicing and learning and just getting down to the work that I need to do, this framework is great. So one of the things you can do is when you're doing your prompt, we call communicating with generative AI chatbots, we call it prompting. So I have to tell you what I want for you to give it to me. So if you use the CREATE framework, it does provide a great outline or framework for how to kind of tell it what you need to elicit the best response possible. So I love that you can tell it like, I'm an ED nurse, or I'm a researcher, or I'm a nursing professor, and I'm teaching undergraduate nursing students. I tell my chatbot that all the time so that they know where I'm coming from with my prompt, with my question. Then offer a description of the task. You know, I'm a nursing professor and I need to design an assignment about ethics. I have the following document example. You can upload documents or files as examples and just tell it that it's attached. Provide a good example. You might have an example that you use that you found on a website or a blog or an article that you can copy and paste in there. And then you want to tell it to give you the output in a specific tone. Maybe you want it to be informal. Maybe you want it to be scientifically written. Tell it how to write it, and it's going to do its job pretty well. The more information you give it, the better. Tell it what you want from it, what output you want from it. What type of output do you want? Do you want a table? It does a great job with tables. Do you want an academic paper? Do you want a paragraph? Tell it how many words you need, and then add anything extra that you can think of. It does take a little more time to like follow this and get it all into it. But when you hit enter and you've done that prompt using this framework, you are going to get a really robust output that is going to save you a lot of time trying to get it to do what you want to do. So the more specific you can be, the more information you can give it, the more character and persona you can assign to yourself in the system, whichever one you're using, is going to give you a more robust output. So next, I want to just talk on the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about brainstorming. So I mentioned brainstorming as a really great way, right, to kind of get the creative juices flowing, so to speak. I do this all the time, right? Because I have these things swirling in my head all the time. As I practice as a nurse, as I practice as a nurse educator, as I move about, my research, my passion, the things I do come from the things that are in my head, the questions I can't seem to get my head around, the questions I can't answer. And so I can go to Gen AI to just ask questions. Some of the things that I've used it for is like, help me outline a paper. Like, give me an example of how my paper should be outlined. Background and introduction, methods, which go under methods. I'm writing a literature. Again, use the framework. Tell it as specific as you can. Other things I like to ask it is, so what do you think about my topic, right? Is this topic worth even spending my time on? Is there anything in the literature about it? Of course, you can't trust that it's going to give you an accurate response there, but it certainly can help you with some of the foundational work that may have been done on that topic. And they can certainly kind of frame, whether or not this topic that you're exploring is worthy. We already talked a little bit about research question refinement. And just remember, you can do research questions in a literature review situation or as a formal research study. What I love is that literature search strategy. I don't know about you, but I'm not a librarian. And working with a librarian sometimes is inaccessible for a lot of folks, right? So for me, I work at a university that has plenty of medical librarians, but there's still an accessibility issue there. I don't always have the time in my schedule to set aside an hour appointment with the librarian. And also at the same time, sometimes our schedules just collide. They don't have time for me. And when I am open, I don't have time for them, whatever the case may be. Or you may work for a hospital system that maybe has access to databases, but there is no librarian in-house to help you. I'm not saying that ChatGPT or any of the Gen AI tools should ever take the place of a medical librarian, but what I have found is that when I come to the librarian with my search strategy for a question that I'm hoping to answer with the existing literature, what generally happens is that the session takes no time. All they do is refine the work that I've already done with ChatGPT, and I'll show you an example here in just a second. And then the other thing is just writing advice and examples, like, is my tone good? I sometimes just copy and paste a paragraph of my current writing and say, this is not flowing well for me. And because I'm the one taking it all out of my brain and just throwing it on this paper, I'm not able to edit it myself. It makes sense to me, but I know this is complex, and I know someone reading it may not understand it. Does it make sense, right? And if not, help me adjust that flow. Help me make sure that my flow is logical from one point to the other. And I find that it does a great job with that. So let's go on to the next slide, and we'll look at a case example. One more slide, previous. Yep, there we go. So, I mentioned before, if you are interested in publishing and you are interested in doing a QI project or a research project, I can't stress how much this enough of how important actual rigorous literature search is. It is the first step of the research process. A spot check of the literature often will get you in trouble with the editors or the expert reviewers who are reading your paper. Because remember, if you're writing about a topic, there's bound to be an expert in that. And as editors, we try to match reviewers who have some expertise on the topic. And generally, those experts are considered experts because they know the literature that's out there, right? I work in nursing education. That's my area of practice, my primary area of practice now. Wasn't for my career, but now that I'm in academia, that's my practice. So I review a lot of articles related to nursing education. I review a lot of articles that come into my own nursing education journal. Therefore, I read a lot of literature on a lot of topics. And so generally when people ask me a question, it's like, I know about a study that's similar to this. As a researcher, you should take the time to kind of get to know your topic on an intimate level. And the perfect way to do that is a thorough literature search, not just a spot check. And I understand that spot checks, they're very doable and a lot of researchers do them, but these are people who are already experienced in that topic. So I'm speaking more to, I've never done this before, and I'm kind of trying to navigate this and trying to figure it out. And if you go through a PhD program, that's one of the first things you're going to do. Frame your topic and then turn it into a literature search so that you can start becoming an expert in what exists and where the gaps are. And then you pick your actual research work based on where those gaps are so that you know you're generating new knowledge, not existing knowledge, okay? There's benefits to doing that thorough literature search. If you're gonna do it and you're gonna put in the time and the effort surrounding that literature search, then you might as well get a publication out of it. So when we talk about like people finishing PhDs and they need to publish their dissertation, we're largely talking about 2 to 3 papers there. One is their literature search. It should have been a formal scoping review, integrative review, whatever, systematic review of the literature that can be publishable in that format. And then your results are a publishable paper of what you actually did in your research, generating that new knowledge. And then if you really want to, you can describe your experience with that methodology and how you navigated certain things, and methods papers will make a third grade paper for dissertations. So I want to show you an example of a literature search that I did not actually do this, but I used Gen AI to help me here. And so I asked it to refine my question. I gave it a question, and this is my output, right? So I asked it specifically, like, I need you to take my question, develop the keywords, and give me the syntax, the output syntax for the following databases. Maybe I want to be CINAHL, maybe I want to be PubMed. Pick the ones you want, right? You want to pick a bunch. It gives you a syntax for every database. This example here, the first one that you see on the screen, this example is PubMed syntax where it has mesh terms. So I would just copy and paste this into PubMed, and I'm not just going to use this as gospel. I'm going to check my keywords well and my Boolean phrases, and then I'm going to run a test on it and see if it's too broad, too narrow. And I can come back to my Gen AI tool and say, that's too broad. It gave me 10,000 articles. I need you to narrow it down, and then it'll reformat the syntax for you. And then on the next slide, you can see how that I took this phrase and put it into PubMed query box, copied and pasted it. And look, I got 1,612 results. This is a great workaround for a lot of people think that, they can just go into ChatGPT and say, do a literature review for me on the following topic. It's not going to work. I promise you, it is going to be choppy. It's not going to make any sense. So what you need to do is leverage what it can do well. It can help you design a search strategy based on your literature search question, and it can help you narrow it down. Okay. Now, this is just a good example, but now I want to just kind of go over my workflow. So the next slide shows my workflow. This is how I personally design my workflow for my literature searches, okay? So once I run my pilot search based on ChatGPT and me kind of editing it and going back and forth, and now I think I got it right and I'm really capturing the literature on my topic. Then I run a formal search on each one, and I save the entire search. and I put it on a folder on my desktop, put it in a folder, literature search, make it whatever title you want, put all of your files in there. And then what you want to do is you want to upload those files with all of those articles that you found. You want to upload that into, I highly recommend Covenants. If you haven't looked at Covenants, go to their website. They are a great software tool. They are web-based. You get one review for free per year. So if you are per email address. So if you need to work on 2 reviews, you can just create 2 email addresses and use it that way. And what Covenants does is it lets you start a review. It lets you upload all of your files from your searches, and it automatically removes the duplicates, so you don't have to do that by hand. It keeps up with your Prisma flowchart, so as you're screening your articles and saying, no, this one's not going to work, this one's not going to work, it tracks all of that for you, so you don't have to do that. It's a great tool. Now, once you do your abstract screening and Covenants, that's your first step after you put in all your files and it removes your duplicates. Then you're down to, okay, well, which ones do I want to include? I need to do a full text review. And it gives you all the tools you need using Zotaro. It has training videos to show you step by step on how to do this, where you can get all of the full text of the articles that you didn't eliminate in your first screening stage, and then you go through them and you make a final decision. When you get, let's say you ended up with 39 articles or 40 articles that it met the inclusion criteria for your review, it really captures your topic, it really provides some interesting information. You can download all of those full text PDFs, those 40, put it in a folder, and then go to either Elicit or SciSpace. SciSpace, I think, is still totally free. Elicit does have a small charge, but to me, the amount of money, I mean, I think I paid $20 for enough credits to do my last review, and the amount of time it saved for me is just monumental. So that's worth it for me. What it's going to do when you put in all of those PDFs, the system, either Elicit or SciSpace, is going to create your literature matrix table for you, and you can pick which components you want to extract out of those articles. So maybe you want to extract the interventions that were used in your article, in the articles that you selected. Maybe you want to see what the participant characteristics are. Maybe you want to see what the major findings are. Every topic that you add to your table, it will just use AI to pull the information from those actual PDFs that you reviewed in your review in Covenants, and it will compile it, and then you can download it as a spreadsheet. That becomes your table. That becomes your table for your publication, because you need to have a summary table of the articles that were included. You have your Prisma chart already done in Covenants, and now all you have to do is write your paper after you make sure that the AI extraction is accurate. So the next slide shows you an example of what Elicit looks like. So you can see that my papers are on the left side, and one of my columns is abstract summary. The next one is question relevant summary, and you can see that it's taking each paper and it's actually giving me the answers to my table. If you don't use this and you have your full text, in order to extract the data from those full texts, you have to go through it and do it manually on your own spreadsheet. That took me hours, where I can get AI to do it, and then I can have my full text up and just make sure that there's no issues, and I can correct those inaccuracies that may have come up or maybe didn't come up. So I really like that this can save a lot of manual time when you're doing this literature review process. So on the next slide, once you have your data extracted, it's time to write that paper. The other thing people often struggle with is how do I know what my major themes are based on my findings? Well, you have a spreadsheet now with all of the accurate information from the included articles. So you can take that spreadsheet, you can quickly upload it into your Gen AI tool of choice, and you can say, take a look at my 40 articles for my topic and help me arrange these into themes. Help me arrange these into like categories. Now you have to check this for accuracy. You may need to make a lot of edits to it. But for me, it's helped me because I don't know about you, but when you're reviewing a lot of literature at one time on a topic, there's a lot going on. It's really hard to kind of narrow down which ones are kind of similar, which ones are completely different. And creating themes while synthesizing the literature, in my opinion, is a real exercise in creativity that I sometimes lack because I am more of a concrete thinker, less of an abstract thinker. And that's just me personally. So I struggle with these things. And I'm like, if I'm struggling, I think other people might be too. And this is a great way to kind of overcome those struggles just a little bit. You do need to review those outputs very carefully. Use Grammarly to kind of help you as you're writing out your results. Um, I really love Zotaro. It is somewhat clunky sometimes, but it's free. It's a great reference managing tool. And I think what I like the most about it is that you can take your things from your full text articles, PDFs from Elicit, and you can dump them back into a library into Zotaro. So those two systems speak to each other. And then you can put in Word, you can also have Zotaro connect into Word. So Zotaro is very versatile in its connections with other software. So whenever I'm writing my paper and I have my 40 articles included, I can just in Word hit insert the reference for me at this point and then generate the bibliography for me. Do you know how much time that saves, right? Like we spend so much time figuring out how to cite according to the journal requirements, and it can take a lot of time to get that done. So, despite its kind of clunkiness for being absolutely free, it's worth it to me. I also really like that I can do a mock peer review with AI on my work. Obviously, if you are a peer reviewer for a journal, you may never use AI. You're not allowed to use AI because you don't have permission from the author who submitted the manuscript to give AI any of their ideas. I'm talking about your own work here. Sometimes you just need an opinion. Like, is this making sense? Is this helping me? If you had to peer review this, what would you say? That's not always accurate, but it can kind of help you make some improvements that your eye didn't catch. Because again, if you're anything like me, it's very hard to edit your own work because your brain knows what you're trying to say, but you have trouble reading it through the lens of someone else's eyes. So, that's kind of how I look at it. It's also great to help with editing your paper. I really like that feature. Next slide here. And when it comes to Grammarly, we kind of talked about this a little bit. I love Grammarly, by the way. I've been using Grammarly long before AI came out. I think it is an amazing tool, by the way. But now that AI is integrated, it is a little more of a problem than it was before. So now it doesn't just correct your grammar, but it can actually rewrite full sections of your paper using AI. I think that, you really need to practice caution with that. I'm not saying don't use it, just practice caution with that. Grammarly, by the way, if you use the premium version, can check for plagiarism. Always a great thing to do. You never know when you're unintentionally using similar words than maybe someone else did. You don't ever want to get accused of plagiarizing. It can also check how much of or what percentage of your paper might be AI generated. I don't trust it. I don't trust any AI software checks, but it can give you an idea. Like, I feel pretty good that if Grammarly says, nothing in here is looking AI generated, or maybe 10%, and I know I wrote it all by myself, then I'm not too worried. And that I can feel very secure about when I go to submit. Again, Grammarly is free, but that premium option is where you get that AI integrated tool, and I do highly recommend that. Next slide is just a brief overview again of the benefits of Zotaro. One of the tools that I talked about is free to use. It connects and works with Covenants really, really well. I love that about the full text extraction that Covenants provides with a Zotaro connection. I love that it generates references with multiple reference styles. Some journals even have their own reference styles in Zotaro, and there's a list, and you can just click them and it automatically knows how the journal wants it formatted, which is wonderful. It also allows you to create project folders and put a bunch of documents in them so that you can manage multiple projects and not confuse between more than one. And I love how it connects to Elicit. Um, Also in the chat, I'm not sure if EndNote connects with Elicit. I would imagine that it might, because EndNote is a very popular research tool. I will say, shame on me, I am not an EndNote person. I've tried it and it's just not for me. Every brain works different, and so please use the software that you feel most comfortable. I'm just, again, giving you the tools that I've used, personally, and that have worked best for my brain. The next slide is just a quick overview of comparisons of the different tools. Any of your Gen AI tools, again, they're great for brainstorming. They're great for writing help. They're great for writer's block. They really are. But they have some issues. As we mentioned before, they're inaccurate. They can often plagiarize other people's work. You must disclose if you use this, even if you don't just copy it and paste it into your paper, you still used it, you need to disclose it. If there is cost associated with premium tools. I know personally I pay for ChatGPT each month. It's $20 a month, but there are a range of other price options with all sorts of tools that are coming about today. Again, Zotaro talked about that, can be a little clunky, is a little learning curve. I do find that the YouTube videos are very helpful to help me kind of navigate it. The great thing about it is it's free. We kind of already talked about Grammarly. Elicit and SciSpace, again, this is a researcher's tool. This is a researcher's dream. I also want to mention too that when you're done with your literature review and you're ready to get that published, all these things are great. It gives you that publication. Hopefully you can take what you've learned in that literature review and you've shared and disseminated with other people, and you can take that to start that real research project that you've been working on, using that literature as a guide. What I would say is that when we talk about actual research and not a literature review, we have to be very careful how we use AI. I do not agree that it should ever be used for data analysis. I don't think it's capable of doing that. I think we need to stick with the things we know, our STATA, our SPSS. If you're a qualitative researcher, your in vivos, your max QDA, a lot of those are now getting AI integration. That's fine. But what happens is if you use Gen AI for any type of research analysis, you're taking participant private data and sharing it with a system that we are not quite sure how private it really is. And so you would need to disclose that and get that approved with the IRB before you do any of that. Speaking of that, that kind of segues us into specific journal policies on kind of using these tools and also publisher policies. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Valdez for that conversation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fontenot. So let's just talk a little bit about what you can and can't do at Gen. We use the policy from our publisher, Elsevier. So a couple of things you need to be aware of is whatever journal you're going to publish in, make sure you know the policies for AI tools and manuscript development. Dr. Fontenot has done a great job of talking about some of the ethical ways in which we can use AI, because the reality is AI is here. We're not going to be pulling it back. It's going to continue to grow. And so I think those of us who publish, who are authors, who are consumers of publications need to be aware of what AI can safely and ethically do and what it can't do. For the Journal of Emergency Nursing and for most journals in nursing, you have to disclose any use of AI. And there is, in our author guidelines, there's a specific statement that you need to write out. And generally what we allow is that you can use it to refine writing. So like I've used Grammarly for probably 10 years before AI. I use it on everything. That's not something I would have needed to disclose before, but Grammarly now has AI. So you'll see in my most recent editorial where I intentionally used ChatGPT to refine the writing and flow and even make a table for me that I edited, and I disclosed that. And I did that on purpose because I wanted readers to be able to see how to properly disclose. So again, as Dr. Fontenot said, you cannot generate or edit images. You cannot have it write the content. And even when it refines language, you have to be very careful to go through line by line to make sure it's accurate. I have had, in playing with AI and practicing with it, I've had it add content. I've had it add references. I've had it change references. I've had it create references that didn't exist. So anything that you input into AI that you get an output that you're going to be using, you have to be very meticulous. And one of the disclosures that we require is that you accept accountability and responsibility for everything that's written there. So some of the things that I use it for that I find helpful, one is titles. Catchy titles are awesome, but I can't write them. And so I ask for suggestions. I'll put in what I'm writing about and suggestions for titles. And I don't usually ever really like the titles completely as they've written them, but it gives me an idea. It gets me going to select my own title. Another way in which I use it is in nursing, we write an APA. If you've gone to nursing school at all, you have probably been required to write an APA. And so I'm familiar with that. And one of the things that's nice about APA is you put the name of the authors, right? And so if you have to remove something or put something back, you're not changing the order of authors. So I find it easiest to write with APA citations. And then I do use ChatGPT to convert them over. But here's the things that you need to know. So I might put in my reference list, say this is an APA and I need it to be an AMA 11th edition. But then I have to check that meticulously again, because I have had it add references, take away references that were not there. But the benefit to that is, you can write your paper and then you can switch it over to AMA and put your citations and numbers without having to reorder things and do all of those kind of things. Just about anything you write in nursing requires some level of lit review. So Dr. Fontenot really kind of addressed at a higher level research, because I think that's the most complex way in which we use AI. But even if you're writing a clinical paper or you're writing a section paper, you do need to have it be evidence informed. So you do need to do some form of literature review. But also what's really helpful is, let's say you want to write a paper on hyperglycemia in the emergency department. You can do a search to help look at the literature to see what's been published on that recently, what's been published in GEN about that recently, and does your paper add anything to the existing evidence before you submit it? Because sometimes we get great papers and I reject them because it's already been said, it's already out there, it's not going to add anything. With one exception, in our early career nurse section, we will publish things that are more commonly known in nursing to benefit the people who are new to the emergency department. And then another way that you can use it is if you have a paper like quality improvement, evidence-based practice project, you can use the reporting guideline and ask it to check and upload the reporting guideline as well, that you've addressed all of those things. Again, you have to be accountable for it, but I think that that does help because a lot of times I get completed reporting guideline checklists and they actually did not cover everything that's in there. And that's always going to be a revision for you. And we like to get your papers through as quickly as possible. So I'm just going to touch on disclosures and then we can open it up for questions. Make sure you disclose it. If that AI tool was used, even Grammarly, disclose what was used and how it was used. If you're not sure, check with the journal or the journal editor. You should be able to find author guidelines in the journal. If they're not clear to you or they don't have those outside of GEN, we have them. Then you could do an inquiry with the editor in terms of what they accept. Dr. Fontenot mentioned not doing data analysis. There have been some people who have, for example, put in qualitative data and asked it to do thematic analysis. That's totally unethical and inappropriate. If you do that, it needs to be approved by your IRB, but folks didn't give you consent to add that to machine learning. So we do not allow any data analysis, nor do we really want any of the content throughout the paper to be addressed. Again, it's about improving your writing, streamlining things, making things faster than they used to be. If Grammarly rewrote sections of your paper, you have to have that disclosed as well. And again, look at it, because I do use Grammarly or other generative AI to help me to, improve the flow, check for errors. I'm really bad at picking up errors in my own writing because I see what I expect to see. And sometimes that, refines the sentences or the language or adds sentences. So you need to make sure that you've really checked that. So hopefully this has been helpful to everybody. We wanted to, AI is here. We want you to know how you can use it. We want you to know how you can use tech tools and be able to do that without the risk of ethical breaches or things like that. Dr. Fontenot did mention that you cannot use AI for peer review. I appreciate him bringing that up. That would be totally unethical because everything we put into AI, and keep this in mind when you put your things in AI, are now used as a part of that machine learning, and authors did not give permission for that. And then also, use caution with, if you're looking at something like, some of you may be faculty, there are some AI detection services out there. I, as a professor, would never make the decision that a student used AI inappropriately based on those. I have put papers into them that I wrote before AI existed, and it will acknowledge some of it as probably written by AI. So, I think we have to be cautious with that. So our references are all here for you. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and then just open it up for questions.
I see that we have a couple there. And I'll let you answer these. For Jen, where does generating tables with AI fall under their AI policy? And I'm not exactly sure what they mean by tables, but yeah.
So I think, Sarah, so a couple of ideas as it relates to tables. If you want to put, for example, you want AI to convert it to AMA 11th edition table format, totally fine. If you want it to create a table from your content that organizes it, you can look at my most recent editorial. I did use that feature because I wanted you guys to be able to see how to do that, but it's all my content that it made that table from. So I think that there are ways to use that, but remember, we don't let it generate content for us. So it could format a table you have, it could help you develop a table from what it is that you've written. And then Annette asked, would disclosing the use of AI affect whether an article gets accepted in Gen? No. Not disclosing the use of AI could potentially, and there are some tells in AI that sometimes, being a professor and an editor, I see things written by AI a lot. So I can usually pick up content because of some of the tells, which I'm not going to share. I'll share privately with teachers who want, just because I don't want to help people get around the system. But I think the bigger concern would be the ethical thing of not disclosing. And that's why I intentionally used it. And I rarely use it to evaluate my writing, but I intentionally used it and published that so you all could see. And then, so Eric mentioned that authorship is completely new. That's true for all of us at one point in our lives, Eric. And so you are amongst good company, and you'd like to participate in a mentorship program. So there are two options at Gen for us. We don't have a formal mentorship program. DNPs of Color, which is a professional nursing organization, does have a professional mentoring program that you can join. Here at Gen, what I usually suggest is that you identify a section in Gen that matches your topic, and you start by authoring that way, because in the Journal of Emergency Nursing, you'll be able to submit that article to the section editors, who will work with you to edit it. And when they feel comfortable, then you can submit it. So you do get some editing support in doing that. There is also on Facebook an informal group that does kind of writing accountability. It is managed by Dawn Petta, P-E-T-A. So you can look for her on Facebook, and they have informal meetings, which I think are very helpful. Any other questions for us?
Did you get the one? It says, would disclosing the use of AI affect whether an article?
Yeah.
You got that already? Okay.
I did.
Sorry, I didn't hear it.
No, that's totally okay. That's wonderful. And I'm sorry, I can't see it right now, but Annette mentioned that she had recently published in the Journal of Emergency Nursing. We're so glad that you published with us, and we hope you had a great experience. And we want to encourage other people to share what it is that you know. And just so you know, this will be on our website. So if you don't remember and you want to look at it again, you can look at that. There will also be our webinar on writing clinical papers on the website soon. And currently there is a webinar on writing for publication, which covers all the different types of publications you might do. So it looks like there are no further questions. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and especially our aspiring authors. If you're an aspiring author, expect reviews. You're going to have to revise. Everybody has to revise. Expect that. That's a gift that is being offered to you. If you get a rejection, don't give up. Right? It may not be anything to do with how good your paper is, but really whether it's impacting practice, whether we've published on that in the past. There are a lot of variables, so don't take it personal, and keep on going, and feel free to reach out for support. So thank you all. I hope you have a great day, and we'll get this posted as soon as possible.